Come join Melissa and her guests on the Chats from the Blog Cabin podcast. From North Carolina, this podcast will have you feeling like you've known these folks for years. Listen in as they chat about life, culture, current events, and more, all with a special Southern flair. Curl up with your favorite beverage and get ready to be entertained. Tune in now for a unique experience that's fun and insightful.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Chats from the Blog Cabin. You know, the show where I virtually invite people into the Blog Cabin to chat about life. And today we're chatting about climate change with this amazing author. The author of The Silent Count. Now, EA, I love that. And I love your book too. You hold your book up. EA. So tell us first who you are, and then we'll talk a little bit more about why you decided to write the book and everything else. But just give us a little intro about who you are.
Thank you. And Melissa, thank you for having me on the show. I'm EA Smiroldo, and I am the author of The Silent Count. I live in the Washington, D.C. area. I was born in Washington, D.C., so I've been here for most of my life with a couple of forays into other places. I have, this is actually one of a few side hustles I have writing. I'm also a musician, and I am an engineer professionally. I'm a nuclear engineer. So a lot of my influences get mixed up into my writing. So I write what I know. What can I say?
Nuclear engineer. You don't see a lot of women in the nuclear engineer field. What made you go into that field?
Love. I'm one of those geeky people who it was love at first sight with the atom, and learning about that in school and subatomic particles, and I was all in. But now actually there's probably more now, although there's still few. But I understand that I believe Miss America this year is a nuclear engineering student at University of Wisconsin.
Oh,
so
wow.
Yeah, I think she is very interested in zero carbon and smart young person, and I was so excited to see that.
I can imagine. I'm excited. Definitely excited to see that. I mean, I know as a mom of 3 girls, one of my daughters is getting her PhD in environmental toxicology, so environmental health. So I was super excited. I have a science one, I have a creative one, and then I have one that loves to bake. So I have all the best of all worlds with all 3 of my girls.
Oh, wow. So, that's a great combination.
Mm-hmm. So you're a nuclear engineer. You said you were also a musician. Musician, not a magician. You're a magician when you're right.
I wish.
There you go. So what made you decide to, okay, I'm going to start writing?
So I was inspired by literally the first page of my nuclear engineering textbook, which said, and I'm paraphrasing, but it literally said, you can use nuclear explosives, nuclear weapons for peaceful applications, including things like building harbors, extracting oil from shale, and eliminating certain mountain ranges to create more favorable weather patterns. And this was a long time ago when I was a student. And I thought, why hasn't anyone alerted the media? Not that I believed anyone should be really doing this, because that's a crazy idea. But with climate change in the news, I thought someone's got to write a crazy science fiction novel that has this as the premise. Nobody did. So I thought, well, I guess I'm going to have to step up. So that was the genesis of my book.
And so how long did it take you to write The Silent Count?
I was writing on and off for some years. I did take a break. I wrote a screenplay at one point and got it optioned with a small company called X-Ray Media. I thought my ship had come in, and unfortunately it didn't go anywhere. But it kind of created a monster, and I thought I better get this novel written so I can move forward. I think it's easier to get a novel published than it is to get a movie made. So that's exactly what happened. Then I got back to it, and I finished it, sent it out to a bunch of publishers, got rejected by 10 million publishers. And then I went back to the drawing board, did a lot of editing, worked with some beta readers, sent it out again, and found a home at Solstice Books, which is my publisher. So they Solstice Publishing. So they picked it up, and I'm delighted to be part of their roster. They've got lots of great authors, and I'm happy to be among them.
I mean, first of all, you talk about climate change, which is also a very controversial subject, but your genre, I wrote it down somewhere now, I can see if I can find it, is a Cli-Fi, a climate change fiction, which I absolutely love that new word. So why were you interested? I know you said the start of your textbook was what got you interested, but why are you interested in climate change?
Well, there's a lot of great Cli-Fi out there for sure, and everyone has a point of view. I find that I read a lot of eco thrillers, and a lot of them have this similar trajectory. Like they believe that everyone's got to just get rid of their car. Everyone's got to fall into line and just have only renewable power, and which, as we are at the moment, as great as renewables are, they are not going to be the answer because, when the wind dies down or the sun dies down, you have no power. So, we have some work to do technologically speaking, and you wonder, is there another way of looking at this? Is there another way? So I wanted to look at this in a different way in my work. Now, granted, the answer is not blowing up a mountain range. That's used satirically to kind of point out some truths. But, the questions we have, like, should we make everybody ride their bike to work? My 90-year-old dad, he's not going to be riding his bike anywhere anytime soon. Should we completely cut off fossil fuels? Well, what about these countries where that's their only economic source of power? What can be done? Maybe there's a carbon capture mechanism that we need to explore. Maybe, there are people that are working on ways of extracting carbon dioxide from the air and storing it. So there are a lot of things that I think we haven't even thought of, that I have every faith that the younger generation is definitely filled with a lot of smart young people and ambitious young people. I'd like to think that as time goes on, just as in the past, we'll come up with some kind of a solution for it. So my novel kind of explores things, but it's not from the usual, well, the answer is everyone's got to hold hands and, live in a hut somewhere with no electricity. That I don't think that's the answer. And I don't think most people feel that way. That's just my view. I know some people would like that, and I respect everyone's view, but I have a slightly different view.
I love that you have a slightly different view, but you respect other people's view. I think that has a lot to do with how we need to work as society to respect each other's views and each other's viewpoints and to listen, because I think we're so caught up in what we think that we don't listen to what others are saying.
Yes, for sure.
So
and in Washington, where I live, it's even more of it becomes even more magnified, the differences. But I know that's everywhere nowadays.
Yeah, but more so in Washington. I totally get it. So we need to take a brief commercial break, and we'll be right back. Hey y'all, it's Melissa coming to you from the Blog Cabin to chat about, for a few minutes, one of my favorite conferences that is coming up. It's called the Rise Up Christian Parenting Conference. Whether you feel like you've blown it as a parent, or you're not sure how to navigate the next season of parenting, or you have non-Christian family or friends telling you how to raise your kids, I don't know how many times I got that, or you simply want to be challenged, encouraged, inspired, and equipped to be the best parent you can be, then the Rise Up Parenting Conference is one that you won't want to miss. The conference runs from March 14th through the 16th, but grab your free ticket by the 13th, so on the 14th you're ready to go. And the conference runs from 10 to 2 every day. But don't worry, if you can't make it from 10 to 2, you can always catch the replays later at your own time. So this is one conference that I highly recommend that you check out, plus it's free. How many times do you have a free conference? I will put in the show notes where you can find it. Be blessed. And we are back chatting with EA. EA, you wrote the book The Silent Count, which is inspired by your real textbook and valid science. And let's talk about valid science. Why is it based on valid science?
The science is real. As I said, it was in the first page of the book. And, I think, they actually did do certain applications of nuclear weapons back in the day. This was in the United States, it was called Project Plowshares. And it was spearheaded by President Eisenhower. And they had really considered these matters, and things like nuclear powered planes and nuclear powered cars. That was all part of this program. I think some things were more thought experiments, but in Russia and the Soviet Union, they actually did use they used nuclear weapons to create artificial lakes, for example, I believe in Kazakhstan. And some people have said that the reason why India has nuclear weapons is because they exploited this possibility. The Non-Proliferation Treaty was written in such a way that they talked about nuclear weapons, but a nuclear explosive is not necessarily a nuclear weapon. So they actually worked, I believe, with the Russians to talk about this peaceful use. So there's this was really considered something that we should do back in probably like the 50s time frame, before I think we got a grip. But anyway, in the novel, as I said, it's a real concept, and it's the novel set slightly in the future, and they decide to there's a young woman who's a nuclear engineer who's the lead character. Her name's Dara, and she has her PhD thesis, and this was her thought experiment. This is what she did her thesis on. And things get so bad with the environment. There's wildfires everywhere. There's, floods, and terrible things are happening. So the government decides that they might want to try her solution. So that's what happens. And it's a thriller. So as you can imagine, all heck has to break loose.
What's the one thing, I know when people hear, because most of the time when you hear the word nuclear, you think the bomb and you think all these destructive things. What's the one thing that you could, because you said you fell in love with it. What's the one thing that you can share with people so they're not so afraid of anything that pertains to the word nuclear?
Oh, well, nuclear power, I know that people think of Chernobyl or Fukushima in Japan, or some of these accidents, 3 Mile Island, although 3 Mile Island was not to be compared to Fukushima, or there actually weren't the levels of, there weren't any big releases into the environment, or appreciable ones. But you're right, people are concerned. And these plants, and especially the new ones that are coming online, and these new small modular reactors that have been licensed very recently, the design certification was done by Nuclear Regulatory Commission. These are much safer, and who knows what the future holds. We're even talking about fusion. I'm seeing that in my consulting work. Fusion, will take some time to come online, but fusion has no waste, nothing like that, and can operate safely. I mean, great, as I said, there's some time before it can be commercially viable, but it's much closer than it ever was. As far as things like nuclear waste, other countries recycle their waste, including India, which I believe has done it since 1964. The United States, we for proliferation reasons, we don't do that. And that's why we have this question. And that's why politically, we don't have a long-term repository to store the waste. But countries like, Finland, Sweden, France, Russia, China, I believe they all have either repositories or are in close to building them. So, there's a big international effort with nuclear energy, and we cooperate with many countries. That used to be my job a few years ago when I used to work for the government. But yeah, there are a lot of people working in this field who believe in it and believe in safety. Safety is first, always foremost. And it's much safer than it ever was. Fukushima was not something bad happened, yes. But when you really look at that, they've really looked at that accident, and, you come to find that the Japanese, they didn't put their diesel engines or backup engines high enough. So unfortunately, they got covered with the major massive tsunami. They could have, some say that they could have predicted that tsunami could have done that, and they should not have had them so low, for example. So there's a lot of people working on this that I think is just bringing it closer and closer to greater safety every day.
Well, you just said the word predicted, because a lot of scientists are predicting climate change, like our planet's can only be inhabitable to, I forget what year it is. So let's talk about climate change and the predictions of those.
Well, I'm not a sky is falling climate change person. I've never been. I think that we're very adaptable as a species. I think also, the Earth is very adaptable as well. You find a lot of, when you have a lot of carbon dioxide, you do have more greenery that comes up, because that's just the way the balance of nature works. That's not to say that we don't have a problem, because I believe we do. As I said, I'd like to think technology is the way forward. That we should be able to come up with something. We put someone on the moon. We developed a nuclear weapon. We've been able to do these things in fairly short order. It's the political will has to be there. There's got to be a lot of funding. I don't think it's useful to say, well, everybody in this state has to have an electric vehicle by this date, and then not have enough charging stations for the vehicles. I mean, I don't understand. There's no plan, and the market is part of the issue. The free market, and which we have in the United States, which I think is one of the reasons why we've been able to overcome so many things. But it is a little, it's one of the reasons why we don't have a lot of nuclear power plants, because they wanted to build more. But regardless of any safety considerations, the reason why we don't, I believe, is because natural gas prices about 10 years ago or so got so low that it just became economically unfeasible to try something different. But that's where I think that we need a little bit more of an intervention, something to make sure that we have backup systems. People want to build all these solar powered plants and windmills and all these things, but we have to remember, you need those batteries, which are using minerals, which most of the minerals are run by the Chinese, the other governments. And do we want to have to rely on that? We have to really think hard about, where we want to go. And that's where the political will comes in. And I think a lot of people are trying to use this issue to create wedges, to just not come up with a solution, just to cause fights. And I think people, I would hope that more facts are out there. That's another thing. Then there's people on the other side that the sky is falling and we're going to die. We're not going to die. We have time. We just need, we need to be smart about this.
And then there's some that think there's no climate change at all.
Right. And then there's the climate change deniers. And in my novel, there are some people who are climate change deniers who are on the payroll of people who, it benefits them to deny the climate change. But, we need to think about it, because do we want to decimate entire industries? Is that right? Maybe there are some industries that do need to go away. However, is there a way that we can use fossil fuels and capture carbon, for example? Is there? I mean, maybe there's a really good technical solution out there that hasn't been hasn't been developed yet. I know people are working on it, but we just, as I said, we can't just say all or nothing. I think we have to, really, really parse out what the options are, which ones are, which ones we are closest to, which ones are realistic, which ones need a certain amount of work. I know people in government. There's a massive number of people working at that Department of Energy, and for the International Energy Agency. My hope is that they, I know they have people that are working on this, but it boils down to what do the people want, because they're the ones that put the people in power that can, enact the financing for all that.
That's so true. And let's talk about the politicians. That's normally a hotbed topic when you go into a political year. It's taxes, and it's normally like Social Security, health benefits. That's normally but let's talk about what we can do at the polls to help with the climate change.
Yeah, see, this is where it gets difficult, because as I said, there's a lot of all or nothing folks out there. There's one side that just says, well, everyone's got to ride the bike. You can't even ride a car anymore, or you have to have an electric vehicle by this particular year. Okay, that's fine. But put their feet to the fire and say, well, what is your plan for the charging stations? And what is your plan for our electricity? The electricity bills skyrocketing. Is that going to happen? I mean, maybe it could. They're already high enough as it is. If you're charging your car all night long, there's that issue as well. So there's that aspect. I think that people need to really get in there and say, well, what about this? If they start talking about all these electric vehicles, what about the minerals we need for the batteries? What is our plan to work with this country or that country? Why don't we have enough mines for this? Because compared to some other countries, we don't. Is that going to create another dependence for energy, which we don't want? We fought over that for fossil fuels. So there's a lot that we have to. It's not just, unfortunately, so many people want to make this a simple problem. A lot of politicians, especially, they want people to think, well, it's not real, and that's it. Just live your life, and that's all. But and then there's a lot of false stuff going on too, as you probably know. There's a lot of people trying to sell a product, selling something that they claim is made of recycled materials, and you come to find out that it's maybe 5% recycled materials.
Yeah.
And then it's greenwashing.
One of the things that your publicist sent to me was a question about art or technology. Which one do we use to get through to people to talk to about climate change?
Yes, this is a theme in the novel, because Dara's ex is a musician, and he ends up getting very successful at his music. And they have sort of a push-pull between them. And first of all, Dara has to see him everywhere. Imagine you have your ex and he starts to become like world famous, and you have to see him on the side of a bus everywhere you go. So poor Dara has to experience this. But meanwhile, she believes that good science is the way to go. And Jericho, her ex, who's a musician, believes that music and art is how you get through to people. I think that art reaches more people, quite frankly. I think we've always, when you look at cave paintings, they were trying to telegraph something very important when they drew that mastodon on the cave. So I like to think that, art, and by art, I of course mean fiction or music or movies, especially movies. So many people are, especially younger people, they can recite the movie completely from start to finish. It really shows that gets through to people. So I'd like to think that art is probably the key, but then you've got to have science to show how you're going to get there.
Yeah. That is so true. Now, you just said in the book, the main character's ex-boyfriend is a musician. Did you kind of base that your loving music and you being a musician on that character?
Yes, in fact, there are some song lyrics in the book, and when I was younger, I had a band. So the songs are real, and you can actually listen to some of them on my YouTube channel. So if you just look up EA Smiroldo on YouTube, you'll find them. But yes, those are real songs, and Jericho is kind of a punkish rock musician. The Washington, D.C. area has a very wonderful music scene in it. It has since the beginning of time. I mean, I think, who's that great guitar player? Roy Clark is from the Washington, D.C. area. Like people you wouldn't even think of. Chuck Brown is from there. Count Basie is from the region. I think he's from Baltimore. So anyway, there's a lot of great music in the Washington area. So I kind of used my background. There's some scenes where they're backstage, and I have one scene where she looks up and there's a ceiling fan, and it's sort of hanging by a wire. And that I really did play at a club where there was a ceiling fan that it just looked like it was about to go and chop everyone's head off. So yeah, a lot of it's based on reality.
So Jericho is based on you being a musician, but the main character is based on you as being, so you basically put yourself all throughout this book, correct?
Oh, I wish I was like my characters. I think Jericho is more like some guys I knew. He's just a good guy, a really good guy who wants to do the right thing, but it just doesn't always seem that way. He's starting a label and he's starting to get successful, but he just doesn't know what he's doing because everything is new. So I had a really good friend who my band was on this person's label. So I think in a lot of ways I might have used him as an inspiration for the Jericho character. But the music is definitely, I guess I kind of was breathing into the character, the songs. So, yeah.
Because you don't see a lot of science fiction, you said climate fiction, Cli-Fi, that has art in it. So I love how you integrated the two together and how you actually can say, hey, go to my YouTube and you can actually hear the songs. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't think to carry it that far.
Yeah, I just have a vivid imagination. But yeah, thank you.
I just love that you have a vivid imagination. Now, is there any more books you think in you, or do you think you're going to be one and done, or do you think there's got more?
I am working on a sequel to the Silent Count 2. I don't know what the name is going to be yet. I actually, I wrote a first chapter and it won a prize in a short story contest. So if people want to see it, it's called Diamonds. I think if you put EA Smiroldo and the word diamonds together in Google, you'll find it. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but yes. So you'll get a sense of it's 2 years into the future because anyway, the characters will come back. There's going to be some saving of the world that needs to be done, perhaps. You'll see. So yes, there will be a sequel. I just have to get cracking.
Between your time, how do you find time to write? Because you obviously have a very busy life with being a musician and a nuclear engineer and everything else, but how do you find time to write?
I was on an airplane recently and that there was a rather long flight, so I got to do some writing. I will be on a plane pretty soon. I'm going to be signing books, by the way, for anyone who's in the LA area. I'll be signing books on Sunday, April 23rd at the LA Times Festival of Books. So please come and check it out. I think it's from like 1 to 3 p.m. But so yeah, writing on airplanes is a big help. Yeah, and just anytime you find yourself just waiting for something, doctor's office. Well, I guess now with telehealth, there's not as many doctor's offices.
But I would think that would be You must really get in the groove and be able to put everything down, because that, to me, that would be so frustrating. Like you're in the middle of something and oh, it's time to board, and you're like, what? I can't get off the plane now. I got to finish writing.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Or the baby in front of you is crying. I think I don't know. I get distracted by the babies though. They're so cute and they just want to play. So I guess being easily distracted actually helps a writer, because then you see something that, hey, that might be an interesting tangent to write about, or something, little storyline to stick in there. So it helps to just have your radar, open, and to be ready to just to take in whatever's around you. I think that helps with writing.
So when do you think this book will come out, though? The sequel?
The sequel? Oh, gosh. My dream would be next summer, but next summer is fast approaching.
Yes, it is.
That's my dream. So I wish I could tell you. Maybe before the end of the year, for sure.
Oh, wow. You've got a lot of writing and a lot of plane trips to go on then.
Yeah, exactly.
So our time is almost up. Is there one last little nugget that you want to leave us with, that you want people to know?
Well, I want to also mention that my book is not just science, it's meant to keep you up at night and be very entertaining. There's a love story in it. There's, as I said, all heck breaks loose. It is a thriller. So I think there's a lot in here. Everyone certainly a lot of female readers like it, but my 89-year-old cousin really liked it too. So you never know.
Well, you never know. And you can get that book on Amazon. And where else can you get it besides Amazon?
It's on barnesandnoble.com. If you live in the DC area, it's at Politics and Prose Bookshop. It's on bookshop.org. So there's a few places where you can buy it. And you can find me on, certainly Instagram, Facebook, all those, Twitter. I have a very active Twitter account. And YouTube, just look up EA Smiroldo and you'll find me.
Yeah, I am definitely going to put in the show notes your YouTube channel so people can go and check out the videos of you, of the songs in the book.
Okay.
I think that will not only will they say, wait a second, I've maybe not read the books, but I like this song. Maybe I need to read the books now. All right, maybe the other way around. I read the books, now I want to hear the song. So
Thank
do
you.
you think your second book's going to have more music in it, more songs?
Maybe. I'm not sure. I have to give it some thought. I do have other songs that I could put in it. With the second book, it helps to sort of like to focus on something a little different, just so it's not a carbon copy of the first.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking about it.
Ooh, I just cannot wait for the second one to come out. Especially, I want to see how long it takes you to write it, and how
Challenge
long
accepted.
and all the challenges, because there has to be challenges when you're writing.
Yes.
Your work comes in first. Your main job, the one you get paid for the most, that comes into play. And I'm sure
my family,
family, yeah. I mean,
my dear man upstairs.
Your cat, because we talked about your cat before you came on.
She's been very good, actually.
I've seen her walking a couple of times in the background, but yeah. So I want to thank you, EA, for coming on and for sharing about your book and about getting us excited about reading this book. And not only that, getting the conversation talking about climate change and anything dealing with the word nuclear, because I think you were able to show us that as long as there's safety protocols, it is safe to use.
Yes.
And guys, once again, her book is The Silent Count. And you can get it on Amazon. And she's at Barnes & Noble, all the other places, but I have the Amazon link up. And it's a thriller. It's a Cli-Fi. I have to think about it. It's a climate change thriller. So I love that. And thank you so much, EA, for coming on and for sharing.
Thank you so much. I greatly, this was great. Great fun.
So, guys, I will put in the show notes everywhere you can find EA, as well as checking out her YouTube channel, because I think after I get off this, I'm going to go over there and check it out myself. And where you can grab her book, as well as where you can follow her on the journeys, because I'm sure when you're going places and when you're signing books and things like that, that you're going to update all your social media to let people know where you're at.
Yes.
So, guys, be blessed. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode of Chats from the Blog Cabin. Bye.
Bye.